Hello and welcome to Gag of the Millennial.
A show where we talk about pop culture,
current events,
and spill the hot Darjeeling right into your laps.
Scoldy Woldy. A spooky scold today.
Scoldy Woldy.
Welcome to the tale of the crypt.
We are the crypt keeper.
Yes.
We are the embodiment of a scream mask. Facelift.
The embodiment.
Cheers to that.
The embodiment of a screen mask. Oh, Miss Ketamine Continental.
Ooh. So, first of all, hi Luxeria. How are you doing?
I'm actually okay.
She's
today.
actually
I'm
good.
not dead.
No, she's not
Which
dead.
is very unfortunate for the topic of today.
It is actually, yeah. Could
because
you please get a grip and die?
Yes, I can. Quite happily. Yes.
So, as it is spooky season, me and Luxeria thought we'd delve back into the world of paranormal, ghostly,
Encounters.
spooky,
Ooh.
unnerving stories,
Yes,
experiences,
yes.
everything paranormal. Because, you know, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like spooky, ghostly, paranormal things.
I'm also a fan, but I'm also very skeptic at the same time.
Yes, so I think...
But I do like the sort of like ridiculousness of the story of like, she came in the night and she was dressed as Santa, but she was dead.
Oh.
It's like, oh, that's exciting. And
Santa's
didn't happen.
a sissy.
Yes, someone's been on LSD.
So yeah, I do want to preface this actually by saying, I am a believer in the paranormal and Luxeria isn't.
Yes.
So I think it works quite well that I have different kind of viewships on it.
Yes.
There's no like confirmation biased.
Okay.
And as always, if you have any stories, anything regarding to like scary things that have happened to you, doesn't even have to be like ghost related. Like maybe you had like a scary experience with
witch.
people. Yeah, a witch.
Yes. I actually think, yes. So people are generally the real monsters.
People
in
are
this
the real
world.
monsters, yes. So if you do have any stories, please comment down below and we would love to maybe do a future one of this, maybe read out some of your own stories.
And I will block you.
And I will... What?
I don't know where that came from.
Anyway,
Yes.
let's get on with the stories.
Right, this one is called The Uber Ghost. I've been driving for Uber and Lyft for a couple of years now, and the story I'm about to share with you is both exciting and sad.
Ooh.
I got a call to pick up a guy at a bar in the downtown area of my city, and I waited by the sidewalk for what was 4 men walking to my car. I distinctly remember 4 men, 1 older and 3 younger. When they got in, one of the guys coming in from the back right-hand side was finishing his cigarette before getting in. There was a middle-aged Irish man in the front passenger seat and 2 Hispanic males in their late 20s, and 1 youthful male who looked like he was from Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic. Is that 5? He was young with dark brown eyes, a buzz cut and bronze skin with a red sleeve baseball shirt and a wooden rosary. Ooh.
This man's gay, clearly, because he
Yes.
noticed all of this stuff.
Yes,
He was like,
exactly.
yeah, look,
Look at these
bronze
men.
day.
The whole ride was quiet and no one was engaging in any discussions. When I got to their hotel to drop them off, I remember turning on the top light in the car so the back passengers could make sure they got everything. But as I looked back, the kid in the middle with the rosary was gone and they hadn't even opened the doors yet.
Oh, I don't like it.
My brain was unable to figure this out. The 2 young men in the back got out and the only one left was the Irish guy in the front seat. I turned to him and explained there was a 4th rider and he thought I was bullshitting him. He even laughed and asked if I was sober. Finally, he asked me in a sort of mock tone what the guy looked like and I described him how I did above. Then it got weird. His face looked more sober and he said, "This is weird. I don't believe in those things much, but you just described one of our friends who died before we came back to this city. He died in a car wreck." I went home after that and sat in bed trying to figure out what I'd just experienced.
Oh, I don't like it. I've heard...
Things like this I have actually heard of before.
Yes, many times of different variations to this story, but things have
Of
like that.
bringing an energy, like someone that you've lost brings an energy with them.
Yeah.
Like with the friend group further on in their life or something.
Yes.
So I can sort of understand the idea of bringing the energy of someone who's no longer with you to like to your daily life or
Yes.
to like events that you've been to. Obviously, I feel like everyone in the audience here will know what's like my story with my best friend Sinestra, who's no longer with us.
Yeah.
I feel like I carry her energy with me in ways that are like cute memories, or I go and do something every now and then that's like related to something that we used to do, or I
Yes.
might do a makeup look that we used to do together or something like that. We were both very similar in terms of style, in terms of like lots of things like that. So I feel like I carry that energy across. I don't know if I was to get into an Uber, someone would be like, "There's a lady sitting next to you with black hair. She used to be a man." But I don't know if that would ever happen to me. But it's interesting to know that people can pick up on the vibe, or maybe even like sort of hallucinate someone that's been lost to time along the way with a group of friends. Do you know what I mean?
I think you just kind of have to. It's up to you to interpret what you've just heard.
Yes.
But like whether you choose to believe it or not. I actually think sometimes as well, because when it comes to being like, I just saw a boy in the forest, that's very sort of like nondescript, really.
Yeah.
But when someone's described someone that someone personally knows and they've described them as they are, it's a lot harder to be like, you're just making shit up. Even the most skeptical of people can still have a scary experience.
Yeah, I think the emotions are real. I don't necessarily know if like an alien from the forest did come and probe my ancestries, but the feelings that happened are still like live in there. Like people that have had a paranormal experience and they've come away from the situation feeling a bit shook, that feeling of shook is still real.
That's still there.
Real. They've experienced that, but whether what they've experienced is real or not is like the question.
Yes, you don't really know, and I think stories like that to me are one of the most compelling. I think that makes me go, oh, maybe there's actually something there than just, I just saw a little boy running around the forest. He had 8 legs. And it turns out back in 1820, a boy sewed 8 legs to his leg and died.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's more compelling of the person in the car than
the 8-legged child in the woods.
Yeah. I don't know why that's where my mind went. An 8-legged child. My last year at uni, I lived in a 4-bedroom house with a ground floor, then 2 floors with 2 bedrooms each. So I guess 3.
2 bedrooms? Oh yeah, sorry. I was like, 2 bedrooms per person. What is this bougie place?
So a 5-bedroom
I
house.
lived in a 5-star hotel.
I don't know why this person didn't just say I lived in a 5-bedroom house.
Yeah, I lived in a big house. Yeah, easy.
I was on the 2nd floor and the bedroom next to me was empty because the guy who we had rented it off would stay there now and then with his girlfriend.
Okay.
I don't think he ever actually slept there though when I was there. My bedroom and his had a small crawl space cupboard in the corners.
No. If you have a crawl space in your house, just burn it down.
But the whole idea
Bernadette.
What are crawl spaces for?
So you can go inside and crawl about.
It's weird. I can't.
No, there's a reason why we have them.
Why?
The reason is for horrific stories like this. That's the builders are like, do you know what this needs? Creep.
I come home from uni one day to find my friends discussing noises that sounded like loud footsteps that they heard from my floor that night when I was asleep. I laughed because apparently these noises were so loud, yet I heard nothing. Because I don't believe them, I offered to go look in the crawl spaces. Oh, awful. We go upstairs, I open the door to the empty room, and right as I open the door to the crawl space then slammed shut.
Oh, disgusting.
We freak out. There's no reason for that door to even be open to begin with in the first place, for it to be able to slam. We grab kitchen knives and hold up in one of my friend's rooms until the morning. We never found out what those noises were, but it was the scariest thing that ever happened to us the whole time we were there.
So now this to me doesn't necessarily sound paranormal because there's that film The Boy where he lives in the walls. And that is a real danger because there are real people that have done that.
Have you seen that video? So this has happened before where I'll have to. I'll put it visually on the screen if you can see it. Sorry for SoundCloud people. But there was a story a little while ago of this man who kept having food go missing from his fridge. And he couldn't work it out. So he put a camera in his kitchen to like record what happened. And after he went to bed, someone crawled out of like the attic that there was like an attic space in his kitchen. Crawled down like
and took food.
Ate food. Urinated in the sink and then went back up. And it was just like.
Horrendous.
Oh my god, that is so terrifying. So when I hear stories about this, I kind of have the same reaction.
This is the most believable.
Probably, the most believable.
I don't necessarily think it's like the rat eggs have hatched and the 8-legged children from the forest are crawling about the crawl space. No, I'm actually like a man has committed a crime and then run into your house's crawl space. That's much more likely to happen.
And the thing is as well is that they both like they didn't really say it there, but like were those rooms like connected? Like, was the crawl space
like they maybe were connected by the crawl space?
Because imagine like having that, and then you wake up and they're like someone's in your bedroom and they've come out of the crawl space.
That's exactly it. It can happen. It has happened.
If I was ever in a house and I found a crawl space, I would just completely block it up.
Yeah,
just instantly like block it up.
What are you needing it for? Why do you have a crawl space? What's all that for?
Yeah, weird. Really weird.
What do you
hear about it in like American homes where they're like underneath the house? Like there's like weird, but like is that to stop flooding or something? Like, what? Why is the house
Surely
raised
that
like
just
that?
makes it difficult though, because if it floods, then you're like, oh, now all this stagnant water is stuck in the crawl space where I can't get it.
So yeah, any like people who have crawl spaces like that, what are they for? Because I have no idea. Like not necessarily ones that are in the house like this person's, but like underneath the ground. I don't get what that's for. The thing is, I'm sure this probably is actually a reason for Americans.
Maybe it's like pipes, or so like easy access to like pipes and plumbing and electricity.
All I hear about that is like serial killers and hiding bodies.
Yeah, literally. That's all it is. It's like, I could find a strange smell when I entered this room. There was a dead body in the crawl space.
John Wayne Gacy did. He hid all of his.
Is that what it is?
He hid all of his bodies in his crawl space underneath his house.
That's all I know of crawl spaces.
Yes,
they were installed for John Wayne Gacy.
They were, yeah. So I'm gonna read you this story.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what it kind of makes you think about.
Okay.
This wasn't me, but my dad. He grew up in a small village in Greece. One day on his walk home from work, it was storming quite heavily. He was standing on a tree.
Oh, it's Avatar. It sounds exactly like Avatar.
No. So one day on his walk home, it was storming quite heavily. So he was standing under a tree in an attempt to wait it out. But he was then approached by a slow old woman who he had never seen before. She had an umbrella in one hand and a walking stick in the other.
Oh, it's Willy
she
Wonka.
asked, "Would you like to come to my chocolate?" She asks him, "What are you doing?" And he says,
"What are you doing? Stop doing that immediately."
Can I tell my story,
So
for God's
sorry.
sake?
I'm so sorry. I've got such urges to scream today.
So he says to her, "I'm waiting out the storm so I can go home. I don't want to catch a cold." She tells him, "You're going to live a long life. Don't worry. I would keep going and just risk getting a cold if I was you." And with that, she slowly walked away down the street, out of his sight. My dad waited for a few more minutes and takes her advice, so he starts walking home in the rain. A few minutes passed and he hears an explosion. He turns around and he sees the tree that he was standing under was just hit by a lightning bolt and blew up. Frightened, he ran home, hoping to bump into the old woman to thank her, but he never saw her again after the encounter.
I don't know what film this is related to.
It makes me think of like My Neighbor Totoro. Because the two girls are standing there in the thing and they needed help and they're waiting for the dad, and then suddenly
it's been such a long time
Totoro's there. Totoro's there to like help them, and then he like just disappears. And maybe when I read that, it was maybe for the Totoro. But I think I've heard many stories like this in the past of like people being warned, almost like, I mean, I'm not going to
harbinger of darkness.
Yes. Like someone like, I mean, they would always call it the religiously like guardian
angel.
It's an angel.
Fuck like you. If you actually listen to what an angel looks like in the Bible, you wouldn't be like this sweet old lady with a cane. You'd be like this giant demon with 17 eyes was like, "Hello, I'm going to impregnate you."
But I've heard stories like this over the time of like someone sort of like almost like divine intervention or someone's like warned you. So I mean I can't, obviously with a lot of this stuff.
It would be a different story though if the woman was like, "You should go home," and then she just went and mucked him on the way home. We'd be hearing a very different story. When you said the tree exploded, like I was listening to it and thinking like, "Oh God, the lady just exploded."
It was like playing worms. Old woman.
Just about to say that, old woman.
Boom.
That's what it reminded me of, which is why I was giggling so much.
But I think this is an interesting concept. I've actually watched videos of like close encounters or like what's it called, like close calls of things, and there's been similar videos of like people talking and they've moved for 2 seconds and then all of a sudden if they didn't move they would have been struck by there's that video of that man going into a lift with like a it's like a warehouse, and he literally 2 seconds moves and it just collapses, and it's like little things like that. Like any second you could have just died. But I've heard ones of like people intervening and things, giving you warnings. So like I don't know how to feel about this.
Well, the thing is, we only ever hear about it when it's a close call, because otherwise it's just like death. Yeah, we just hear like, "Oh, lady died in the forest, struck by lightning." So maybe that man did feel very like lucky, but I think that's kind of what it is. It's like a random act of luck, almost to be like. But then, like, imagine if we'd heard this story and then he got a cold and he went home and died from the cold. Because it was actually C19.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Then the old lady would be a curse.
Yeah, she's the witch of Snow White.
But then I could be saying anything. Like, if I was a broom, I would be in B&Q.
Yeah, and I'd be riding you.
As a witch.
As a witch. No.
I don't know what's happening today, but yes.
I do like those kind of like stories, regardless of how you feel.
They make for good party stories,
They
don't
do.
they?
So one of my favorite things is like the idea of sitting around campfires and telling ghost stories.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
the
it's
entertainment factor, right?
Exactly, it definitely has.
Storytelling.
And I remember in the last, was it the last video? It was one of the videos we did recently, and I said about how I miss being scared. Yeah. And like I had a couple of people comment saying like, well, I've seen you play horror games on Twitch and you're frightened, but like I don't mean like getting scared at like playing a horror game, because like anyone's susceptible to jump scares like that, but you're not like scared, you're just apprehensive of everything, and you might get a bit creeped out by like the film for a bit, but like once you turn it off, it's done. Once it's finished, it's done.
And I quite like that. I don't want to. I feel scared enough as it is.
Yeah, but like I think it's quite fun when you're like with a group of friends and you've sort of freaked each other out a bit, and you're a bit like, ooh, I don't want to go to the bathroom. I'm scared. Yeah. Like when you're on your own, it's a bit like, no, that's actually not nice.
Yes, I'm going to die.
But I think I really do miss that kind of feeling of being creeped out when I was like younger, because like your world view is still so kind of small that you haven't really experienced life, I guess, because I think a lot of it is maturity, but also just as you get older, you experience more things, and like you just stop being scared about ghost stories of the neighborhood town, because you're like, I actually just watched like more terrifying over there, and it was some man being murdered in real life. You become so numb to kind of like these spooky stories. So kind of that's what I meant by I miss being scared.
I still feel like though this is something that's you've had a fundamentally quite different experience to me, because you grew up in like a really small village, whereas I grew up in basically a city, so I never had these like village folklore like tales about where I was, because I grew up in Brighton. It was just like, don't go to the beach, you get bummed by the gays. And it was just like, oh, okay, do you know what I mean? So that was like the joke was like, you get bummed in Brighton, you get bummed, and it's just like, oh, whereas apparently yours is like, don't go over there because Jessi's grave will get you. Like, the haunted tree stump that kills everyone near it.
Exactly. That's the thing. I think actually
it's a lot more abstract, the horror.
Yes. No, I actually, that's a good point to make. Like our school was like hundreds of years old, so like there was always stories about like they would see like kids that had left years ago or whatever, and they would just suddenly appear. I mean, there was even like the Summerfield that I worked at back in like the mid 2000s. There were stories that apparently even workers would see like a little boy in the lift.
Oh.
That was sometimes appear because that building was there for like God knows how many years before. It was a really old building that obviously over time.
400 years ago, children knew how to use lifts.
Yes.
Very
But there was always these stories about where I lived. But I think maybe cities don't have it as much. I mean, London probably does, because there are so many like old.
Do you know one? I can't think of like a ghostly urban legend that I've heard about London. Like, don't go down to the Thames, you'll die.
I remember seeing there was one about there's so many ghost stories about like the underground in the early days when it was like built up.
Actually, there is
when they were like digging, because
about the underground.
There was so many ghost stories about the underground, about
so many people died.
So many people died building it, but also when they were like excavating things to make the tunnels, they were unearthing plague pits, loads of like mass graves from like attacks and all this shit. So there's loads of ghost stories around the underground.
That's
so I think
actually that's true. This one is called "Don't Open Your Windows or Doors If You Hear Knocking While Driving."
Oh no, the mad dinner lady.
The mad dinner lady. Before my dad retired, he worked over the Midwest doing highway construction. These are very American words that I don't know. He would be gone for 1 to 2 weeks at a time for most of the summer, working sun up to sundown. One night, he was on his way home in the middle of the night. He was probably 40 miles from home, out in the middle of nowhere, when he heard a knocking sound on the rear passenger truck door.
No.
Disgusting.
Absolutely.
Like driving at night is kind of a little bit nerve-wracking anyway.
Especially in like country roads as well.
Well, this is just it. In London, it never really gets to night. Like there's never really
so much light
darkness.
pollution.
Whenever I leave London for like a little while, I'm always genuinely shocked at how dark night is. And it's so dumb to say it, because I'm like, it happens every night, but it actually doesn't. Like London doesn't ever get dark.
No.
Like as soon as you leave and you go on one of those like country roads at night, it's like, oh no, this is like, I can't see anything.
Yes.
Terrifying.
It is actually really spooky. I think when we went to stay in Devon in February, that was the first time that I kind of experienced like darkness again after so long.
That's legit darkness. Really strange, isn't it? He was instantly caught off guard and wondered if he should stop to get out and see what it was. No. He also thought about rolling down his window to see if he could figure out what made the sound. No. Something didn't feel right, so he decided to just keep driving. Very good. The correct option.
Yes, the correct one.
There was a town coming up soon anyway, so if it happened again, he could get out and check in the light. He got into town and the knocking had stopped. Somewhat relieved and getting closer to home, he decided to press on. As soon as he was out of the lights of town, the knocking started again. This time, he was terrified.
Oh no.
It literally sounded like Knuckles knocking steadily on the back door.
Was there someone actually inside the truck, do you reckon?
God.
And he just didn't realise?
It happened a few more times until he reached the lights of his hometown. The next day, he told my mum and me. We all went out to inspect the truck, and it was covered in dirt from construction. Only on the back door, where the knocking came from, there looked like knuckle marks. He knocked on the truck and it left nearly identical marks. Not long after that, we were speaking with a medicine man. We are Anishinaabe. I don't know if that's the correct way to pronounce that. Anishinaabe? I'm butchering that word. I'm so sorry.
Wait, what? I'm confused. So
they're a type of indigenous people.
Oh, okay.
And my dad told him what happened. He told us that it was good that he didn't get out or roll down his window or whatever it was would have gotten closer. These things don't have good intentions and they will try to trick you.
I don't like things like that because, again, it's one of those. It's to me that's one of those like plausible things.
Yeah,
that
it's
could...
the same thing as home intrusion. Like it's likely to happen. Like people will. You often hear about people hiding in the backseat of cars and then mugging, like carjacking, is a real thing that happens.
I think I may have said this before, but I remember hearing a story about a person who had got into someone's back seat.
Yeah,
and they didn't realize for a long time. Yeah. And for ages, I was scared to get my friend's car because I was like, no,
there's someone in the back. Well, the thing is, you can always just check.
Obviously, growing up in a town that was very tiny, and then like a lot of the country roads were very dark. I was kind of used to driving around them with my friends and stuff. Yeah. So I think you become a little bit numb to it, but it's still, even someone who is like a seasoned driver of the back streets, like it's still creepy at nighttime, especially because as I said, there's a lot of legends and shit of Devon and stuff, but it is scary. It is creepy when you stop somewhere like that and it's just darkness. I swear one time we were walking down where the park was near my house before, and there wasn't any street lights on this road. It was just pitch blackness, and we were chased once by someone. We have no idea who it was. Someone just like randomly chased us.
Paranormal experience.
We were coming back because me and my friend Hannah were just coming back to the house. As we were coming back up the road, I turned around, there was like someone behind us, and all of a sudden they just started chasing us, and I don't have a clue who they were.
Horrendous.
No, I don't know if I've told this before. So I was having a party. It was me and like a whole load of my friends, like 7 of us. We're having a party. I used to have these like house parties at my house all the time. We were going down the same road to a park. This car pulled up to us, high vis beams on, stopped in front of me and my friend Hannah, and like sort of just stayed there. And we were like, "What's happening? Why is this car like stopped in front of us?" And as more of our friends like came around, it kind of like sped off and then went away. As we were walking down, the car kept going back and forward, like up and down the road. We went to the park. We at this point we're like, should we just like go back to the house? It's a bit creepy. We then went to the park. We're like, no, let's just carry on anyways. We went to the park. The car pulled into the car park with this high beams like shining on us while we're in the park for like 10 minutes, and we were just like, what the is happening? And it was so scary. And because it was like high beams, we couldn't see inside because the lights were so bright. No idea what was going on for that, because we were thought, maybe they were looking for their daughter or something. But like the amount of times that they did it, I was like, this is weird. Especially because the first time when they pulled up to me and Hannah, and it was just us two, I was like, that's not a normal thing to do. Like, if you're looking for someone, you'd be like, do you know where X person is?
Excuse me, have you seen
but it was just the way that they just stayed there, like staring at us for ages.
That is creepy as hell.
Yeah.
Really, really creepy. I've had not experience like that, but I've been like curb crawled by men who are like,
get in my van.
Oh no, leave me alone.
Rose the red, violet's the blue, I've got a gun, get in the van.
Oh my God, that is horrendous. No, luckily I've not had a situation quite like that. But no, I've been like curb crawled by myself and with friends and stuff, but never like followed in a car.
Weird.
Well, it's the same thing again of like anything that seems to happen at night is a lot like creepier anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like anything that happens in the sea is immediately more creepy because you're not in your like natural element. When you close your eyes at night and you're in like a dark place, your eyes just hallucinate anyway. Like if you close your eyes and then maybe put your hands over your eyes, like put a bit of pressure on your like closed eyes, you will hallucinate colors and all sorts of things. So the idea that like in the dark you can see things like moving or darting or something, like the dark is creepy for a reason.
But they also say as well, like a lot of the time there's lots of legends about things like Bloody Mary and stuff, is because when you look into when you look into like the mirror at nighttime, your brain almost like distorts things because it's trying to make sense of what it's actually looking at.
Yeah. A lot of these tales as well, like things like Bloody Mary, came from when we had candlelight and
Yeah.
candle flickers. So when you're like staring in a mirror and you get the like light imprint, you know when you stare at a light and you get an imprint of that light, if it's flickering,
Yes.
it could very easily look like what you've seen at yourself, but then you've like looked away and you can see an imprint. You're like, it's Mary Girls.
It's Mary.
And that's the end of
And
that.
that's the end of that
thought.
chapter. Cheers to that. Just recently, about 2 weeks ago, I was on my way to Home Depot when I arrived at this spotlight. After sitting there for about 15 or so seconds, the light turned green. Oh, stoplight. I said spotlight. Oh,
like-
yeah. My show has arrived.
Yeah.
I stopped at a stoplight. After sitting there for about 15 seconds or so, the light turned green. As soon as it did, I felt like I couldn't move at all. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like it was as if something was telling me not to go just yet. After about a second or two, this red Ford Explorer barreled through the intersection, running the red light, what must have been about 50 miles per hour. I don't know how much exactly, but it was ridiculously fast. After the car sped through the intersection, I could move again. I don't know what that was, but had it not been for that, I would have probably not been able to tell you this story. I think for this one, I feel like I wanted to actually discuss. Have you ever been in a situation where you've just had like an awful gut feeling
Yes.
about something and you're just like, I don't know what it is, but
Yes.
something is not right?
Yes, I have. I also ignored one.
Oh, did you? Oh, no.
And then ended up in a relationship with him for 10 years.
Oh, dear.
Trust your gut, girl. She
Yes,
knows
yes.
best. No, but there was one where I was actually with my ex, and I was just like, I don't want to get the train home tonight. Something is like, it was late, and I was like, there's something's happening. I'm gonna get like an early train in the morning.
Yes.
Nothing ended up happening on that train, but I was just kind of like, I'm familiar with the feeling of like dread. It's like a foreshadowed dread or something.
It's like I think it's so strange because sometimes you can just like, especially I think sometimes as well when you meet people, sometimes you can have a wonderful night, but there's something about them that
vibe is off.
you can't like just pinpoint what it is. And like I think the human instinct, like I don't know what this was for this person, but like clearly something happened in his body that was just like no, like I don't know, like
Too much Botox.
And you know, if he says that if he went forward, like he probably would have died if that, you know, if that fucking back of truck hit him, he would have died. I mean, I mentioned this a while ago. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like as I said, like the morning my grandma died, there was something about that morning. I don't know what it was. Nothing was different than what any other day when she was in hospital was. And I just knew. I was like, there's something about today. I was like, she's gone. And then we found out later that she did. And like, I couldn't tell you anything about why that happened.
Yeah.
But there was just something in the air, something inside me that was just like,
That's it. When my mum went into hospital in 2012 and didn't come out again, I knew as soon as she was taken into hospital, I was like, she's not coming out again.
No, yeah.
Like, that's it.
It's really, straight. I think
it's weird, isn't it? Vibe.
But because they say it about like twins as well, don't they? How they say like twins can sometimes like almost like feel each other's pain and emotion. I've heard many stories of like people being in like completely different locations and they've known that there's something wrong with their twin. Even I remember, I'm not going to tell the entire story, it's not really my story to tell, but maybe years ago Callum was in an incident where he was hurt and his mum instantly knew that something had happened, even that this was like when we were teenagers, so like it was before social media and everything, and she rung him that literally like not even 20 minutes after it happened, going, what's wrong? I know something's wrong with you. And she just knew. Like, I think it's very interesting. I think, what is that?
I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't really know how to explain it because it's a feeling that you get that's not in your head and not in your heart. It is in your like stomach.
Yeah.
The stomach and your whole like gut area has just as many nerve endings as your brain does.
Really?
Yeah, just as
I didn't
many.
know that.
So the idea of like a living gut or like a nervous gut in
Yeah.
not a way that's like I'm scared, but in a way that's like nervously active.
Yes.
Then maybe you can pick up on like energies and things like that, but there's no real like scientific evidence for it.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel
It's
like
mysticism rather than anything else.
Yeah. I think it's also very interesting as well. It's like when you hear, not even necessarily hearing a story, but you go into like like an old building, and sometimes you can kind of just like feel the heaviness of the air in it. Like I find that very interesting.
It's probably something to do again with what we were saying earlier when you explain that you get pressure headaches.
Yes.
It's probably something like this. There's receptors somewhere in the body that are just like can detect like air differences or something.
Yes.
Like the reason, you know, when people are like, when you're up a mountain, the air feels really fresh.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the air is technically the same, but the pressure is different. So
Yes.
maybe that's like, maybe there is something there that's like the body very, very, just very, very low frequency can just tell a difference of like the strength of a room, like the density of a room's air that you're in or something. And you're like, it feels really heavy in here. That's where the phrase, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife comes from. Like you can just feel the heaviness of a room.
Even like frequencies can fuck up your body where you can hallucinate. Just from hearing like a low pitch frequency.
Well, also the brown note can make you just defecate yourself. So,
can you?
Yes.
What's the brown note? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, so it's a specific note that like ruptures your bowels, basically.
Because I swear they were trying to like develop sound wave weapons.
We have them in London. We have sound cannons, but they are illegal to use.
Oh,
they are. Yeah, they're.
Is it like one? Is it like a not like illegal just from the UK, but is it like one of those illegal things? Like
it's like a war crime.
Yeah, like a war crime. So what does it do? Like making people explode?
I have no idea what it. Yeah. I don't think if it makes people explode, but it was meant to make. There was one that was light and one that was sound. I can't remember exactly what the sound one was meant to do, but it was meant to basically like remove people from an area because it was so unpleasant to be in. But you also have the light one that can make you sick. It can make you just immediately vomit. Yeah.
Because there's that town in the UK that everyone like hears like a hum. There's like the hum town. I wish I remember the story. There's a story of like there's a place, I'm pretty sure it's in the UK, where certain amount of the population who live there can just hear this like constant hum sound, but it's not like everything that anyone can hear, and a certain amount of people can hear it. A bit like I guess dogs could hear certain frequencies. Yeah. And that like makes people ill. And so they like move out and shit. It's like weird.
This one is called "My Partner Just Glitched and It's Freaking Me Out."
Oh, now, I love a good glitch story.
Yes, I do want to preach to the choir here. That's not what I meant
to say.
Preach
to the choir. Welcome to my psalm.
Oh, sometimes people do just glitch.
Yes.
Like sometimes I'm just like, oops, why did I do that? Never mind. Anyway, let me preface this by saying there has always been creepy stuff happening around me, and I have several stories of my dad's old house which made me and my siblings all agree it's haunted as F. So this evening, my partner, who is 42 and male, and I, 32 female, were upstairs sorting the laundry when his daughter, who's 17, called us downstairs as dinner was ready. Very spooky. Spaghetti ghost.
Making the kid make the dinner.
Oh.
I'm triggered.
Disgusting.
Disgraceful.
I was heading down the stairs and my partner was right behind me, literally 2 steps behind. He did his usual thing of tickling the back of my neck as we walked. Oh, push you down the stairs.
Yeah.
The bottom of our stairs is wooden, so you can hear when somebody steps onto it from the carpeted stairs. When we got to the bottom, my feet hit the floor as usual, and as I turned to ask him something, he wasn't there.
Oh no.
He wasn't there, girls! I totally froze for a second and looked up the stairs, and there he was on the top step, pale and shaking, found shaking and crying. I asked him what the F just happened, and he kept saying, I don't know, I was behind you before I hit the bottom, and the next step I was back up the stairs. I don't know what's happening. We didn't say anything to our girl as she is already leery of this stuff, and I thought he and I are somewhat used to it. I'm trying to get the courage up to leave my laptop recording audio overnight because there is definitely something wrong with this house.
The thing is, like,
I think illness has befallen
the thing is, I am obviously a believer in ghosts and shit, but like teleportation and like suddenly appearing at the top of your stairs.
Of all the things to happen over billions of years of evolution, you think your husband following you down the stairs and moving back 2 steps is like the biggest moment. Like you're not that special, sis.
Stories like this, I just think there's actually a scientific explanation.
The thing is, like, people sometimes just do hallucinate as well. Like, people just do. Like, the amount of times you'll be like making a coffee and you're like, I can hear a noise, and then you look around, and you're like, there is no noise.
It's like that the phenomena of you see someone like moving from the corner of your eye.
I had that twice today, and I wasn't like a ghost. I was just like, oh, I'm ill.
It happened. It does happen. I can't remember the exact thing, but I remember watching a video about it a little while ago, and it was like actually a really common thing that happens to people, and it's not actually paranormal. It's just something in your brain misfires.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of these things have like weird little like human like explanations for them. I mean, maybe not every single thing, but a lot of them do. So for example, the one that I can think of right now is, you know, people that have arthritis, and before it like you have a really heavy storm or something, the bones start to like hurt.
Yes.
And it's like, that's not you being psychic that it's going to rain. That's like a medical phenomenon.
Yeah, my grandma had that.
Yeah, so it's like, it's one of those things where it is explainable, but it's not like back in the day before medical knowledge would have known that. It would have been like, oh, old lady Yella's gone all wonky, it's gonna rain and we're all gonna die.
That's the kind of time where people would be burned on the stake. Is it true that cows sit down when it's about to rain? There was a whole thing about cows will sit down when the storm's coming.
Should we ask a cow? This is our special guest, Daisy.
Moo. Hello, Daisy.
Do you like to sit down?
Moo.
Only when it's raining.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
You've cleared up that question. What's role-played cow being interviewed about the rain?
Welcome to Gag of the Moo. So, the title of this one is it's actually more of a question, but people are replying to it. And it says, what are some horrifying things to consider when thinking about aliens?
Ooh.
So someone's commented here saying, aliens could do to us what we've done with wolves, selectively breeding a once noble species in grotesque ways, transforming us into the equivalent of bulldogs, poodles, and dachshunds.
Yes, absolutely.
But
I love dachshunds. Though.
I didn't realize a dachshund's like not actually good. Like, are they?
So unfortunately, with a lot of like pedigree breeds that are bred for very specific things, unfortunately, a lot of the time they have like some health issues.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because I knew about things like pugs and like French bulldogs that have the smushed up faces. Like they're actually banned in a few countries because of how like poorly they normally get. But isn't it a weird concept thing that aliens would ever see us or something and be like, do you know what? We're going to...
Well, they just give them really long arms, aren't they? It's cute.
Yeah, but I wonder why... Like, where did the probing thing come from? Do you know? Where did that whole like, aliens probe humans?
Absolutely,
like, how did that become...
idea. I think someone was just like, I really want to get
I
probed.
really want-
I was like,
yeah.
no, they did it against my will. I didn't want it, but I was there ready and clean for the taking.
Maybe that's like a Hollywood invention. About...
Maybe there is like a really infamous like film or piece of media or something
Maybe
that was
that
like that
started it.
introduced the idea of like aliens abduct you to
And
probe.
probe you.
Like what can they learn from probing?
Maybe it was just because like straight men just really wanted anal sex,
this
and that
is
was
it,
the
isn't
only
it?
thing.
And they're like, oh my god, aliens!
Because I think it's an interesting thing of actually like if we were ever discovered by aliens, like and potential them like using us as like farms or something, they could farm humans or like.
Well, that's the premise of War of the Worlds. So it's different from the book. The book is a little bit different, but the film sort of goes along the concept. I'm not going to give. Oh, maybe I shouldn't.
No,
give
it's fine.
you
It's fine.
spoilers
You can
then.
say honestly, it's fine.
So if you haven't seen it, plug up your
it's
holes
a very
now.
old film
It
now.
is,
People
yeah,
can't be like, you
2000
spoiled it.
Spoilers. It's from like
Jack also
2000
died in Titanic.
Yeah, it's from like 2005, I think,
Yeah.
something like that. But basically, they capture humans, and as they kill them, they use their blood to like fertilize the ground.
Oh.
So it's like they farm humans, or they keep them captive, and then spray the blood to make the ground like really red and like fertile for the alien
Dracula.
species.
So another comment of this says, if they are significantly more advanced than us, aliens may treat us like ants. When we build dams, we don't worry about whether or not a dam will cause an anthill to be flooded out. I think that's probably one of the most common things that people say about like aliens is like they would just try to kill us or like destroy us.
Yes, well, there's the concept of like if we are a competing species for resources, they would be like, okay, we're going to war with the humans, or they might be so advanced that we are in fact not even a consideration of threat, which is I think what that comment is trying to get at, where it's like nobody cares if the anthill's flooded.
But yeah, I think that's actually that was Stephen Hawkins. I think he said it was like safe for us not to find alien life.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to like go out of our way to find it because we don't know what we're going to expect, and judging from the way that humans treat other species, if they were anything like humans, we wouldn't want to find them.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think there's the last comment here. There's the possibility of them already knowing about us, but us not knowing about them. We have no idea if they would know. They could be commuting through space right now, and we would have any idea about it. And that's like one of the oldest kind of stories, I think, when we think about aliens.
They're already here.
They've already been here, or they've come before.
Yes, so there are lots of like weird little things you can think of from like a scientific point of view from this. So like, for example, humans have been to the moon, and we went there and we were like, there's not actually a lot here, so let's why bother coming back kind of thing. So imagine if a species is so old that they came here a long time ago, and they were like, oh, nothing's on that planet. And then they were just, it's like written off of like, just don't bother going back because there's nothing there.
Can you imagine?
Imagine if that is the case. And then it's like, obviously life has happened, blah, 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 but we're already written off as like, oh, don't bother.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, exactly.
Like they've already been here. It's a bit like you leaving Devon.
It is,
why bother going back?
Why
you've been there, seen that,
been there, done that mess. I got beaten up and cried.
Bulletproof.
Yes, this time, baby, gout.
I've got gout.
I would love to think that in our lifetime we'd find anything, but unless there's a way that like, because me and Luxeria and like other millennials of our age are in like a weird, I mean, obviously people younger as well, but we're at like a weird cusp of like, we could, like, if we haven't killed ourselves in the future, we have a potential of like finding some way of like keeping us alive for longer. I think
Yeah, there
we're
was a
kind of like on the
scientist.
cusp of like
Yeah.
people
Not
who
immortality, but like
Yes.
like longer life.
Yeah.
Like people now are understanding that like you can take certain supplements and do certain health routines to
Yes.
create a longer life. Blah blah blah. There was a scientist. I don't know if they're discredited now because they were a bit wacky. Carol and her wacky arms.
I love the guys.
Very that. They were like, the first person to live 1,000 years has already been born. And it's like, oh, maybe not.
Maybe. Because I think people who are born right now, like babies who are now born, again, unless we've destroyed the planet, but like I feel like they probably now got the best chance of like living like really long lives, depending on what technology we
if they're like
invent.
accurately cared for, I feel like we could quite easily keep people alive for a lot longer. I mean, we can do that already if you think about things like transplants, like organ transplants.
Yes.
That is essentially like extending life.
Yes.
It's still within the boundaries of like what we consider to be biological human life up to like about 80, something like that.
Yes.
But imagine if you're like, when you get to 80, you're like, oh, just change all my little bits and bobs.
Bye.
But then would you be the same person? Paranormal.
In the concept of like Christianity and like God, surely God would be an alien because he's not from Earth.
Well,
Wouldn't God be technically an alien?
I mean, sure, let's go down that route. Why not? Well, the idea, there are like some ancient like hieroglyphics, for example, depicting like aliens coming down and bringing the bearing of like the knowledge of fire and like the knowledge of light and how to harvest electricity and things like that. So in essence, you could argue the case that like maybe an alien influenced us very long time ago, and then humans were like, that's good, they've helped us survive, girls, let's all have babies and form a church.
But
Like,
he's suddenly a white man.
Yeah, and so the idea that then we're calling him a he/him is so hilarious because it's like, oh, so does he have testicles?
Yeah.
Like, does God have testicles? Does God have testicles?
He does, yeah. I felt
An
them.
unusual question. for
God
this
came to
morning.
me in the middle of the night and
Oh, he came on you as
teabagged me.
Do
And
not
on
be
that
afraid.
note,
Teabagging.
Do not be afraid.
Anyway, let's move on. So this one is from the subreddit Paranormal Encounter.
Ooh.
And is written by Meow59.
I love meow meow.
215.
Meow
Meow
meow.
meow.
Meow, meow,
Let's
meow.
not talk about
No,
meow
no,
meow.
no.
I love meow
Meow.
meow. God, 2008 is quaking.
Quick question, please.
So, I work in a nurse. No, I don't. I work in a nursing home that is also attached to a hospital. Spooky. Lately, there had been a lot of death in the nursing home, and it's so weird, like it came in waves.
Oh, she's beating
Death.
up the other microphone stand.
They say death usually comes in threes. Who says this? Does anyone say this?
Well, I
In
think it's the same
threes.
people say like they say that the
Don't
one for
walk on the
sorrow,
cracks.
2 for joy, 3 for a. They say about magpies, don't they?
Oh, that's true. That superstition. Sometimes it comes in clusters of threes. Well, then that's not really like in threes, is it? So that's actually
That's
9.
Yes, 9. Yeah.
Yeah, stop doing that. It's clusters of ones. No.
Clusters of what?
Yeah, like we will have a group of 3 die within 1 or 2 weeks, and a few weeks later, another set of 3s will go. And then it will go a while without anyone dying. When I was still working my night shift, we were doing 2 a.m. rounds, and my fellow co-worker froze in her tracks in the hallway and turned completely white. And she suddenly looked sick. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she saw a full-body apparition of a little boy who looked at her, and then he walked into the wall between 2 residents' rooms. Within a week, both of the residents died. Oh, so the little child is Winnie the Paddington Bear!
Come on, Paddy up.
Another thing that happened was this lady rang her call light. No big deal. We went to answer it. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. The resident asked us why there were children buried in the backyard.
Oh dear.
Oh, Mavis is off her meds. Down the hall that was adjacent to her, another resident was banging her head on the wall at the same time talking about children. She died.
Oh, wow.
This story.
What a way to explain. She died.
She died. A dead body.
A dead body.
This one really creeped me out big time. But we had a resident ring and we went to answer it, and she tells us that she needed to see the lady across the hall because she's dead. We didn't believe her and thought she was crazy. But we went to check on the resident and she was dead. Anyway, that's all I've got now.
What? That just sounds like a hospital. Like
I know, right? Actually, you said that. That's what happens in hospitals.
The thing is, like, obviously someone is a believer in paranormal and stuff. I feel like sometimes when people share stories like that, it almost like takes away validity of stories that feel almost like they could be real. When you say things like that, like,
Yeah.
it's because it was haunted.
It muddies the water.
You were just in a hospital
But-
with unwell people who
Yeah,
died.
this is exactly
Like-
it. So the idea that someone is working in a hospital and taking what their ill, old patients, because if you're in hospital, you're not doing well, are you?
Yes.
Whatever it is that's gone wrong, you're in hospital.
I'm there for an
it.
award.
Yeah, I'm there to just a nice day out at the hospital.
Yes.
Said no one ever. So they're listening to these people who are like on the edge of life, going, "The children are buried in the yard, and they've come to see me, girls. I'm gonna smash my head on the wall," and going, "Oh, everything this woman says is valid."
Yeah.
Like, she's clearly very unwell.
Unwell,
Like,
yeah.
I can understand that sometimes listening to people talk about like spooky things can kind of give you the willies,
girl.
but also like take it with a pinch of salt.
Yes,
sis.
exactly. I used to work in a nursing home where I cared for dementia patients.
Oh, scary.
Every patient on the hall I worked on would steal spoons from the dinner to give to the kids because they liked shiny things. It got to a point where once a week I would have to go through everyone's room to get back all of the spoons that they had stolen. I asked the patients about the kids many times but never got a good answer. Wouldn't be so weird if they all didn't do it all together, but it was everyone. One time at 3 a.m, one of my patients started screaming, so I ran into her room and found her lying in her bed, seemingly fine. I asked her what was wrong and she said, "The boy is here again and won't get out of my closet. I'm scared." Like me too, Dolores. Dolores, what the heck? The reason I included this is because my granddad had dementia and Parkinson's. So it was the amount of times where I would come into the living room and he's just seemingly talking to like the room, and he's like, "Oh, I'm talking to the boy. There was a boy. I'm talking to the boy that's sitting on the sofa." Or sometimes he would say, "I'm talking to Sylvia," which was his wife, my grandma. And I think to myself, like, I always wonder, like, what they're actually seeing. Like, are they actually seeing like an entity? Like,
So-
not like ghosts, but I'm not saying ghosts, but I'm saying, like, are they actually seeing, like, are they hallucinating a thing?
So when it comes to things like dementia, you have to think of it as like parts of the brain are being deleted.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily that they might not even be experiencing anything at all. It's just that a part of the brain that would usually control like thinking inside your mind
Yes.
has just suddenly decided to speak out loud.
Yeah.
For no reason at all. Because the problem with dementia is that there's no sense in it because it
Yes.
is just deleted brain tissue, basically. So it's not a case of, are they hallucinating? Are they actually having a conversation with something? It's more like the wires are so crossed that something like impulse is just taking over.
Yeah,
So-
because I always think about, like, is it actually quite a scary experience, especially when you get to quite bad dementia? Because my
This is
granddad,
it, isn't
my
it?
granddad, a lot of the time would be screaming at night time, and you would go to see him, and he like nothing's wrong, but he's just like, oh, out of anything. That's probably the most terrifying thing, that your body is
Yeah.
almost like dying,
Yeah,
and there's
yeah.
nothing you can do about it. But like
It's very unpleasant,
Is that
isn't it? Very
experience
unpleasant.
really scary?
I have not had anyone with dementia in my life. I just did a lot of study around it in human physiology because the brain is an organ. And
Yeah.
when an organ decides to mess up, we usually study why that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that, I would imagine that the early stages are almost the most petrifying
Yeah.
you can feel. As like, if you consider yourself a completely independent, capable, adult. that's-
She's attacking
Yeah,
again.
beat! A completely capable, independent adult, and then like all of a sudden you notice parts of your world are crumbling, but maybe you haven't noticed they've crumbled
Yes.
until something happens and you're like, oh, I need to think of that thing, and you genuinely can't.
Yes.
But you still have the wits about you to know that you can't think of that. There's like two things that are happening. There's like, I'm really scared, and then there's, I don't know that I'm really scared.
Yes.
Or I can't feel that I'm really scared because I'm so scared.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a point of like, not no return, but almost like a point of no return
Yes,
with Alzheimer or dementia, where it's no longer terrifying for them, even though they are terrified.
'Cause they don't get it. They don't understand anymore.
It's such a singular experience, as opposed to like a long-lived trauma.
Yeah.
So like if something bad was to happen to us, I'd think about it for days and days and days and days and days. Whereas maybe someone that has dementia who's screaming at something, then in 20 seconds, that experience would have been deleted.
Yes. Yes. That's
So
true. That's
are
like,
they
yeah.
genuinely terrified, or are they just experiencing a now?
Because I think we talked about this ourselves a little while ago when we were in Camden. We had a discussion about this. I don't know why we were talking about it, but I said, is it like to a stage when, because my granddad obviously when he got really bad, it was like he didn't know anything that was happening, and
Yeah.
I was like, is this a bit like when you're like a baby, when you don't remember anything, and like in a way you've kind of in your brain you've almost like already died because you don't remember, like
Yeah.
you don't remember when you're like 1 or 2 years old. You have no recollection of that at all. And is that, do you get to a stage in life with this illness where like you get to that and all of a sudden like time has just disappeared? And like a bit like when you go to sleep you go to sleep at the night time and you wake up in the morning. You don't know what happened in that time. You just wake up.
Yeah.
Is it them? And actually you've gone past a point of no return, and almost like it's actually to your reality, you've actually just died, so you don't actually really remember or experience the last like couple years of your life.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
It's a weird thing to think about,
because you do get like, especially with certain dementia patients and certain stories about dementia patients, is that they have like moments of clarity.
Yeah,
they're like, and then I said I love you to my mum or something, and those people often like break down in tears because they haven't seen that person
yes
for a long time. So like your analogy with like going to sleep and waking up, I would actually say it's probably more like going in for surgery and going under anesthetic. Like you are gone. Like there is no
I guess
way
you're not dreaming,
your body can remember what happens to you when you're under anesthetic. Whereas when you're dreaming, there is some level of knowledge that like you're in a bed. You're like that. Like there are certain things that your body does to know that you're asleep. Whereas when you're put under, it's just like your body has no idea what's just happened to you.
Yes.
And I would say it's more akin to an experience like that, but I don't know for sure. So it's really, that's probably the most scary thing we talked about today is like potential illnesses of the future. Because this going back to what we mentioned earlier about like people living longer, because people are living longer, Alzheimer's and dementia is at its highest rate it's ever been, because it's almost like an inbuilt system of the brain being like, okay, the body can live longer, but the brain is like, I can't do this. And like something is wrong and happening. And it's just like, eventually with any system you have, a stable system can only be stable as long as it is responsive. As soon as something goes wrong, then the system becomes unstable, and then like everything starts shutting down.
Oh, it's every domino effect with a lot of this stuff.
Yes, that. And I think it's kind of frightening to realize that yes, we might be able to create humans that live 1,000 years, but will they be the same human they were at 20?
Yeah, well, I think as long as the consciousness, I guess, is still the same.
But how do you manage a consciousness
when
you can't explain what it is?
It really creeps me out, actually, when we talk about, like, things like Black Mirror situations where, like, they've created AIs of people, and it's like, is that real? Is that actually your consciousness gone in there, and then suddenly the one that's outside isn't actually you anymore?
Yes.
And, like, you don't experience the outside world anymore, or, like, anything. The whole idea of AI, or like you transporting yourself into a computer, is terrifying, because it's like you don't know if you're going to wake up, or if suddenly.
Well, the irony about AI is that it's almost one of those things that can't really ever truly exist as we would think, like science fiction, of like we've created a self-replicating, like entirely new existence, because a lot of computer programmers. Oh, she's like, I hate you, die. There's a lot of any computer programmers in the audience here will know that a lot of like artificial learning algorithms are just literally if-whens or if-and commands in a system. It's like, if this, do that. And it will learn to be like, if this, do that, if this, do that, if for like a million lines of code.
But what was that thing that there was like a robot, or like there was a program, I can't remember who, like a scientist people made, and they started like
communicating to each other.
And then they made like a new language.
And then they turned it off due to frightening. But it's still that point of like, that's not a spark of life as such. That's literally that's an if and or an if when equation of like, if you say this, I respond with that. Like, until we get to a point where there's an understanding. Yes. We don't know what they were doing.
That's the thing. I think we're too early in this technology to truly kind of understand the length that can
This is why also when you listen to billionaires like Elon Musk being like, the future is AI, we'll be having lady servants who are completely intelligent. It's like, that's...
Well, they used to say back in like
we don't even know what life or consciousness is, so how can we create it?
So many programs back in like the early 1900s, like in the year 2000, there'll be flying cars and people going to space every day. It's like,
well, the thing is... No, very that. But also, if you think about the level of technology we've had develop in the last 20 years, it is incredible. But also, we still have dinosaurs who are like, no, it's been this way forever. We'll keep it this way forever. Like the idea that only now really we're having electric vehicles that are actually capable of doing things. Even though the electric car was around before the petrol car. But that's because industry and people in industry have no intention of selling away their power and their money. So they drip feed technology to us. Whereas actually we could have accelerated way past the needs for... We could have developed entire cities now that don't need to have individual car systems.
Well, it's where also... It's a bit like at the moment everyone's going through like the energy crisis and stuff. I was like, well, if these money hungry bastards from years ago put all this money into green energy, we would not be having this issue now, because we wouldn't care. We wouldn't need fuels from Russia or all of that. We would just be able to sustain ourselves.
I don't know why as humans we've gotten ourselves to this point where we are constantly handing away power of things we can do to people who just want to exploit us for it.
Yeah.
So like, why doesn't every single apartment block or house or something have like its own way of generating its own power source?
Yes.
Why is it always outsourced to another situation?
Yeah.
Like, why do
Yeah.
we have giant power stations that power certain areas of the country when we could have, like, instead of one giant power station, each house could be considered a power station by having lots of little pieces rather than one big one that's designed to like control everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It makes no, because when you look at nature, that's not how nature works at all.
Yeah,
there's not
there's one
big
tree
river.
of life and everything's like around it.
Yeah, there's lots of little things everywhere, and that's much more sustainable.
We found out like about the
it's much more easy to like repair if it goes wrong.
Exactly, like how trees and
Communicate
fungus
with
and
each
stuff
other
like all
through mushrooms and
communicate, and
fungus.
like that's not just one tree doing it, just like the entirety
It's
of
a
like
network.
Yeah, exactly.
It needs to be a network and not a single thing. Absolutely.
It's
but
like
until
you
we
wanna
have
just be-
nationalization of like, until we no longer look at like basic utilities to exist in a human as this world as like profiteering aspects, we're never going to see real development.
It's like the Nestle man was like, water's not a human right.
Yeah, and then they started trading it on
Ridiculous.
the stock exchange.
Disgusting.
Unhinged.
Like
Unhinged.
that's vile.
Yeah, like actually we should take your water away forever.
Yeah.
So.
We've gone on some weird tangents today, haven't
this
we?
episode's been quite exciting.
It's been quite, yes, but I don't know what am I going to call it. The
Yeah.
ethics of ghosts.
Yeah, literally, yeah. So this one is called Nobody Believes What I Saw, and sometimes I don't either.
Ooh, I saw
Yes.
a child of God.
Yes. And she was dead.
She was dead because I killed her.
Yeah. It's 11:17 in rural New Brunswick, Canada. And
11:7. Imagine being alive in 11:17.
no, at the time.
I thought this was just like a ghost story from history.
No, it's the time. Sorry. I'm getting in my car to head back to Fredericton from my parents' place in the middle of nowhere. I had just finished up a small gig at the local fair, and I had 1 or 2 beers at the show. Driving home drunk. Illegal. So I'm just pulling out of my parents' driveway into a dim country road to get back to the city when I turn on my high beams and see a tall, lanky, completely dark figure standing in the ditch on the right-hand side of the road. Terrifying,
yeah,
girls,
leave by.
I mean, this thing must have been 8 or 9 feet tall, absorbed all lights, and had no limbs bigger than a baguette.
Slender Man?
Very slender man, isn't it? I slammed on the brakes and watched this thing run across the road and into a field on the other side of the road, towards the woods. I'm getting goosebumps writing this, but I could still see its silhouette speeding across the fields in my neighbour's yard's lights as it went into the black of night. I stopped to shiver on the road for a moment before speeding up to get to a safe distance. I had no idea what I just saw, so I called my mum to tell her I just saw this tall, alien-looking creature less than 100 meters from their home. She and my sister searched online for what it could have been and came back with an article on the Black Stick Man phenomena, which fit exactly what I saw on the August night in New Brunswick. This experience really opened my mind to the paranormal, and I'm almost thankful. That's quite terrifying.
I think it's terrifying, but I feel like that's more
He's had some beer as well, so we kind of have to remember that.
I think stories like this kind of more, to me, go into like urban legend stories.
Because I'm sure you've had some in like Devon where it's like the Jersey Devil chased you home.
Remember I have talked about this before, like the hairy hand,
The hairy hand, the mad dinner lady.
The mad dinner lady. You know, there was like the Jade's grave. Like there were, you know, there were things like that. I remember there was one that was like people would swear they would see like a panther like going through the fields.
Wow.
It was like this. I can't remember the exact story.
Yeah, God,
it was actually on It's a Mystery as well.
They had it on
that.
They did, didn't they? I think we watched that one actually.
But yeah, I think for this
anywhere
kind of
with
story,
wide open spaces in the night, you're going to hallucinate all sorts of things.
That's the thing. I think with this, it's like maybe this person did see what they thought it was, but like to me, it sounds like you may have seen like a tree or something, and you've misinterpreted it as something blocking out the light, but it was actually like a thick tree trunk.
Also think about something like if you've sped up to an area with your car headlights on and they cast long shadows over something.
Yes.
If you think of like a cat is suddenly like the shadow of a cat is going to look really long and bulky. And if it jumps quickly across, you might only pick up on the fact that you've seen this giant shadow leap across the road.
Yes.
It could be anything of these sorts of things. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it's not real, but there's also like there's loads of like the brain does just glitch.
Yes, it does.
It does just like
It
you
does
do just make mistakes. Like it happens to me daily.
Like that person teleported earlier on.
Yeah,
glitch.
like, oops, dead,
glitch in the
Matrix, go.
Yeah,
But
I
also,
think,
that doesn't mean that he wasn't completely spooked out of his mind, because
again,
I would be spooked.
It comes back to that thing of like, well, you clearly have these emotions and you're feeling the way you're feeling, so they're at least somewhat valid in that aspect. But whether or not you saw what you think you saw.
What you think you did.
What you think you did.
Yeah. Driving at night, as we said earlier, is like genuinely terrifying anyway. I've got an example of something that similar-ish to this that kind of happened to me. I was driving with my friend Electra and Amy. We were just driving through the countryside, like outside of Brighton. We just went for like a drive one night, late at night. And we were coming back along this really long road. And I was doing the national speed limit, which in the UK is 60 miles per hour. And then I saw something in the road up ahead. And I had to really slam on the brakes because I was going to hit it. And I actually thought it was like a little bunny or something in the road. Turned out to be a plastic bag.
A plastic. Do you ever feel
like a plastic? I was gonna say that, but then I was like, no, don't say
No,
it.
don't say the C word. No.
Split like a plastic flap.
Oh.
And I was like, I thought it was a bunny, and everyone in the car was like proper emergency stopped, like seatbelts clicked in, like strangulation style. And I was like, oh, thank God it's not a real thing. It's just a plastic bag. But there's that split second if you are driving somewhere that your brain does kind of go, it's a something, quick, react, because like you are driving a death machine.
Yeah. It's actually one of the reasons why I stopped driving.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm someone who should just, like, I think there's this notion that everyone should learn, that everyone should be driving. No, they shouldn't. Not every person is cut out to do everything.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who, like, I shouldn't be driving. I will kill someone. I will be and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I will take public transport or Ubers or whatever. I just hated it. I was like, I don't want to, I'm going to kill someone.
And that's the end of Paranormal Encounters.
Goodbye. It turns out the people were the scariest all along.
All along. The moral of the story.
Yes. So everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. It was actually a lot of fun. It went completely different than I was expecting.
I love our topics because we're like, ignore that.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Please
share any paranormal experiences you have with us in the comments below.
Yes,
so I can block you.
Yes. Any ghost stories, any paranormal things, any theories you like, anything we talked about today, any theories you have on anything we've discussed, and of course also, even if you had like a spooky experience with a person, please let us know down below.
Sometimes people are genuinely quite frightening,
they are,
actually.
Honestly, they are. Working in retail and seeing that some of the people
yeah.
come in and they'll be like, this butter!
This woman is dirty!
Fate and fortune said, I'm going to see a bald man today and he's going to give me lots of money. Yeah. Therefore, my shopping is free.
Therefore, I'm going to rob him.
Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will see you soon for another episode of Gag of the Millennial very, very soon.
Yeah,
Bye, guys.
Of Waliers. Have a spooky Halloween.